We are starting.
So we're recording as we speak.
We are recording
Okay, well, we're here again.
because we're not all there.
Well, very good. I like that. Anyway, I am, as you well know, the time traveler who comes to this world from a past time, so I understand things from the past. And
Is that
Frank,
your pastime or the past?
well, we,
Is your past-
we were gonna. You tried to talk me into doing a column once, son. In my day,
That's right.
that's where I come from. Anyway, of
In
course,
my day, a hard drive was here to Pecos in one trip. That was a hard drive.
the guy that's doing that really crappy accent is Frank Ordaz.
I'm Mexican from East LA, so
Is Frank Ordaz really known as Don Panchito Villa, and what was the other one?
your common sense.
Common Sensei. Now, before we start, I don't know where the hell we're going. Frank Ordaz called me this morning. He did, and I was sitting there enjoying my coffee at Depot. I mean, not Depot Bay, but Nancy's Cafe. And he said, do you have anything prepared? And I said, what? What do you mean prepared? He said, do you have any, if you don't have something prepared, I don't really want to necessarily do it if you don't have to have something
I
prepared.
don't want to carry the show.
Well, yeah, you don't want to carry the show, but the fact of the matter is,
It's got your name. It's got your name on the podcast. Time
Then-
Traveler, 1860s. Sir, people are watching for you.
Then the truth came out. He said, well, I didn't get much sleep last night, so he wanted to blame me because he
that's
didn't
not
get any
true.
sleep. Oh, yeah.
I was doing show prep till about 12:30 last night, just looking at.
Aha! There we go. That's my next point.
Okay.
Show prep. Do you have anything prepared? I have been preparing my entire life. And when you want to talk
Good one.
about
I respect that.
and when you want to talk about politics, I can still remember the Adlai Stevenson Estes Kefauver debates.
You
And
were, you were probably there for
telling Mr.
Constitutional Congress.
Old
meant to
man
say.
Darrington told my dad told old man Darrington, he says, because Adlai Stevenson's running against Estes Kefauver for the nomination.
Adlai Stein, what year was that?
In the late 50s.
Okay.
Anyway, he said to L. Man Darrington, Adlai Stevenson will never win because he will never take and beat Eisenhower. That's how far back I go. That's a long ways. And I've been
Memory of
listening.
an elephant.
I have been listening to this crap my entire life. I am going to fight for the little people. They're all going to fight for something.
I'm going to save democracy.
I'm going to save democracy. I am so sick.
That guy's a Hitler.
I am so sick of hearing this crap. But hey, okay, now here's where we get
Back alley abortions. We could just regurgitate all the cliches.
for years.
Throw grandma off the cliff.
Oh, that was a good one.
He's
I like
gonna-
that one.
Remember Joe Biden said he's going to put you all
All in
in
chains.
chains. You know?
Oh, yeah, and you have to do that right.
Scare
Yeah.
the good black folk, you know?
Anyway, I don't research nothing. I just know what kind of is right
You're
and wrong.
intuitive.
I'm into you. Oh, that's a good word. I like that. Anyway, but here's what Frank does. See, this is what Frank does. He's got that damn. What is
Well,
that
show him the
called?
front of it.
I want to show him this end. Look at
Yeah.
this.
I do
what are
some
you
of them-
nuts?
I
Are
do
you
s-
completely insane?
I do some of them reading. I'm reading some of those thick books.
Yeah, no pictures. I don't see any pictures. Anyway, and he gets on the internet. What is that, the internet thing that you guys got?
Yeah.
Well, I said when they first started this, I said initially, I said, we're not, the more we get to know, the less we're going to, the more we get to. He said, a friend of mine, he says, we are awash in information and starved for knowledge because that stuff is right out there. And I said, once this information superhighway gets out there, we're going to know less. And that's exactly what's happened.
Well,
then we have Frank,
well,
somebody
what you're-
like this who actually does. Look at it. And he's got little thingies in here.
Yeah. To help me. See, I'm one of those people who you're probably one of those people who do the dog ears, right? You probably fold the the end of the page over. Do you do that?
Well, I could, yes.
I don't do that. I use a little bookmark. That way,
okay.
that way, if you want to resell it, resellers hate people who dog ear their books.
I know.
That's what they tell me.
I can understand that. And look at this. See what I usually
I read
do?
Paul Johnson's History of the American People, and the way he wrote history is different than this author's name is Schweikert, Larry Schweikert. He kind of creates these sections of history, whereas Paul Johnson, the way he wrote about history, he would pick some characters that he thought were emblematic of a certain period. So he chose Cotton Mather for a certain period, then he would choose Andrew Jackson to talk about a certain period, and of course Abraham Lincoln to talk about a certain period. And for the age of, let's say, the robber barons, he would, choose like Vanderbilt or somebody like that. So you got, like, when this age will be described, let's say 100 years from now.
They're going to be laughing at us. No,
No,
women.
who would you pick? Who would you pick to describe this era? If you have to pick like one individual,
Who's in the future?
if 100 years from now, if you write a history book, what individual would you pick that would say captured the spirit of the age? If you're writing a history book 100 years from now, I'll tell you who I'd pick.
Okay.
Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Here's a guy built the electric car. He was involved in creating PayPal, which is kind of how everybody pays their bills. He's launching rockets into the air. I forgot what it's called, SpaceX. He's got satellites up there, which were used for the war in Ukraine to help the Ukrainians. And now he's doing something called Neuralink. So if he's kind of like this age's Edison, or this age's Tesla, of course, that's what he named his electric car over.
Yeah.
So would you, using the Paul Johnson, who's a British historian who I believe has passed away, Elon Musk would, I think, be emblematic.
I was thinking about different people writing about the same thing. And I am a big history nut, and I mean, I'm not.
He surprised me this morning because when I talked to him, I said, "Do you know why?"
I learned that in the third grade.
I forgot everything I learned in the third grade. Do you know why the British raised taxes on the colonists? And he knew right away. It was because of the what?
Because of the French Indian War.
Exactly. And of course, if you're in England, what do they call that war?
Well, I forget what they call it.
The 7 Years' War.
Oh, that's right, the 7 Years' War.
They call it Years' War.
So the Brits thought they were getting screwed by the Americans because we were not having to pay our fair share.
And that's
our fair share.
And that's kind of true. They were kind of lax with the colonists because they were bringing in money from the what is it? The East India Company and all these other trading with the colonists for cotton and tobacco and all these other products and tea. So they were a little bit lax in their taxation, but after the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, they were in debt big time because they had this huge empire and war is expensive. So they said, let's just stick it to the colonists because those guys got some money, and they stuck it, with the Stamp Act, which essentially was a tax on anything
printed.
Anything printed.
It's funny. That's always been the way, though, because in 1876, we needed money badly. So what did we do? We signed a treaty with the Sioux, which we wouldn't have honored anyway. But then we decided, to hell with it. We need all that gold.
I don't think it was the Sioux.
When was this? Yeah, Oglala Sioux, yes.
What year was this?
1877, in the 1870s.
Yeah, you're right.
And we just, of course I was right. If I was wrong, I would know it.
I was stuck in the colonial age.
Yeah, you're stuck there.
You just jumped ahead.
I jumped way ahead.
100 years.
100 years.
That's why you lost me.
Because, come on.
I'll try to keep up.
Anyway, but that's why we took the Black Hills, because we needed the gold and the gold money. So we just ignored our treaties.
That's right.
And that's where the Indian got screwed on that one big time. But here's where I worry about, I don't worry about it, but history. Now, I'm a big history nut, like I said, and I really studied Wyatt Earp, and a lot of people only know about Wyatt Earp from a television show in the 50s. But if you go back, I've studied that to death. And when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, I read 2 books about Wyatt Earp and a gunfight at the OK Corral, which didn't happen in the OK Corral, as a matter of fact, and Morgan and that whole group. The fact of the matter was that I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what it was.
Talking about Wyatt Earp?
I read one book, and it was about how Wyatt Earp was a big hero, and Morgan Earp and Doc Holliday, and they were big heroes. And they described in detail the gunfight at the OK Corral, which didn't happen in the OK Corral. I read another book.
Like a little alley, right?
Yeah, it was a little alley next to Fry's photography shop. And I've actually read the whole...
and Wyatt Earp was not a gun rights person. He confiscated people's guns.
Well, of course he did. You got the old... I've been reading a book about the gold rush right here in Auburn and the kind of law that they had. But anyway, I read another book, and in that book, the same story, the same exact details were precisely the same, but Wyatt Earp and Morgan Earp and Doc Holliday came out looking, and Virgil came out looking like murderers. Matter of fact, if you go to
Yeah.
Tombstone, you go to the Tombstone over there, they'll have the headstones for the Ike and Billy Clanton, and it says Ike and Billy Clanton murdered on the streets of Tombstone, 1881. So I mean, it depends on who's writing the
Yeah.
book.
Well, I learned about, it depends who's writing the book. Let's see here. In my younger days, I was sent to a public school, and we learned that the Reformation was a good thing. No, it was in public school. Then I went to Catholic school in high school, and what did we learn about the Reformation? It was a bad thing. I was kind of confused. See, so if you're a Catholic, the Reformation were all these insurrectionists who defied the Pope, la Papa. So, but of course, if you were Protestant in public school,
I'm Lutheran because I'm a Finn. It's required. It's a law.
yeah, in public school, of course, everything Protestant or anything anti-church was heralded as a good thing, and so part of the whole Enlightenment. So they trumpeted the victories of Martin Luther and so on and so forth. Anyway,
So enough of history. We could go on in that. What else? Go.
Well-
run with this. Run.
well, I guess Trump won New Hampshire, but Nikki Haley came out when some of the early votes were in, because in New Hampshire they have something different there than any other state, which is that a Democrat can vote in the Republican primaries and the independents can vote in the Republican primary. So instead of winning by 20 points, Trump won by 11. But if you look into the crosstabs, if you really look into the crosstabs, people are saying, well, Trump now, this wasn't a good victory because he's got to win the independents. The independents in New Hampshire are like far left Bernie types.
No, I didn't know that.
You're not gonna win those people. And Nikki Haley is a gain of function candidate.
You want to define that?
Gain of function candidate. Because
Well, I
she
like
got
that.
all this money and all these votes from Democrats. 70% of the people that voted for her, and by the way, Trump just far exceeded the biggest turnout ever in New Hampshire primaries. The record was held by Bernie Sanders. I think he got something like 150,000 votes. As of this morning, Trump's at over 170,000. He's overperformed. He overperformed in Iowa. He's overperforming in New Hampshire, and I think there's 4% left to be counted. So if Trump is going to win, and to eliminate all the shenanigans that are going to be pulled, like what happened over in New Hampshire, he has to overperform, and he's doing that. So they said 70% of her votes were from Democrats and independents. And on CNN, one of the anchors was interviewing somebody who voted, and he goes, well, who are you going to vote for in the general election? He goes, I'm going to vote for Bernie. So who'd you vote for here? I voted for Nimrata, which is her real name, Nikki Haley.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was her name.
Nimrata.
Well,
She's
that's
Indian.
fascinating.
Yeah, she's Indian.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Got to hand it to Vivek Ramaswamy. You know, he could have called himself Victor, but he kept with he's like Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Could have called him. Well, he did call himself Barry when he was in college.
Yeah, it didn't stick though.
Didn't stick. And Barack, it sounds, you know, that's like authentic, because that's kind of that's kind of like the trend that we have now, is to be authentic. I should eliminate the Frank thing and go back to being Francisco.
Well,
As an artist, don't you think that would work better if I was Francisco? Anyway, that's it. Okay. So Trump wins the election. She's inoculated. She's the gain of function candidate. She's got all. Did you know that she had this guy called David Fluff? Does that ring a bell?
it does vaguely.
He was Barack Obama's, or was it Hillary Clinton? One of the two. He was a Democrat election manager pulling the strings for her. She has some of her major donors are all Democrats. These are people who don't want Trump to be elected.
Yeah. And a lot of Republicans don't want Trump.
And these are the
elected
people
either.
just pulling out all the cliches, you know, MAGA's evil, MAGA's racist. These people These people hate democracy. These people hate America. These people hate the Constitution.
What does MAGA stand for?
Make America Great Again.
Who would have a problem with that?
Well, they think that Donald Trump using MAGA is using the same sort of Hitler chant or Hitler, yeah, Hitler chant, and everybody kind of doing their allegiance to Donald Trump, that sort of thing. They think that we're all like jackbooted robots marching in lockstep to whatever Herr Trump says, which is not the case. I think I've told this audience at one time, when he first resurfaced and started doing these outdoor rallies, he was claiming that his vaccine, patting himself on the back and how great the vaccine was, and the crowd booed. The crowd booed
I think
at
didn't
a
Harris?
Trump rally. And guess what? He got the message. I think he tried it one more time in some other state and people booed. Never again did he bring it up. So there you go. As we mentioned in our radio show, one of the reasons why so many people have gone on the Trump bandwagon, because he was one of the first candidates who we have felt represented us.
Even though he's very wealthy, which is really that was strange how that worked out.
Yeah.
The wealthy guy who didn't say, "Oh, I came from poor," and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but I think because he was in real estate and he worked with his father, so he
knew what sheetrock was like.
In fact, I think he said his dad had him do the sheetrock, work on the foundations and roofing. So he at least understand, and of course he had those casinos in Atlantic City. So he definitely understands.
At least 30 years ago or more, even long before he was just starting out. I remember him talking about cheap Chinese sheetrock, which he hated.
Right, but I think he understands
knew
the
it.
business. He understands the business. In other words, what the man on the street has to go through in order to build something.
Yeah, yeah.
Which means you got to go through the unions, you got to go through City Hall, you have to deal with inspectors, you have to deal with lawyers. You're getting sued by this manager and that manager and by that occupant, and so you pretty much know the dark side and the light side of humanity.
Something that I don't know of any politicians who's had to experience that. Maybe they have. I don't know, but I don't know about it.
I mean, think about it. What does Scranton Joe know about things like that?
I don't think he knows anything about
He's
anything.
been a senator, I believe, since he was 28.
Yeah.
That's all he's ever done was just sitting in government offices and going out and slapping backs and kissing babies and smelling hair.
Most of the politicians.
And I don't mean that just to be totally derogatory, although I do, but for the most part, he hasn't had any lived business experience.
Most of the politicians, and he's described by Tom Sullivan as C- students.
Yeah.
This is the best gig they ever could possibly have. They don't have to know Jack Diddley.
Don't you think that's what made Ramaswamy so interesting? Because he, not only is he verbally gifted, which is amazing, he ran.
Especially with a name like that.
He was a CEO of his own biotech company.
Yeah.
So he's done hiring and firing, and I was reading his book about woke capitalism, and he had to deal with that, and he eventually got sort of run out by his own company. But he was involved in the day-to-day operations of building a business. And when you start that, you're dealing with the HR department, the human resources department, you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with all the regulations that we tried to get away with when we started our country. We've actually progressed back to the time of our revolution. You know that, right?
Yeah.
There were just all these agencies that were created by England where the colonists, they felt powerless for any grievance or injury that they felt. And they looked to John Locke and they looked to Adam Smith, but there was this Frenchman, which is Montesquieu, I believe that's his name.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And what that guy came up with was the idea of checks and balances, right? 3 checks and balances for government. It was the judiciary, it was the executive, and it was the legislative.
Yes, I know that.
And our colonists desired that the legislative, which was going to be closer to the will of the people, should be the strongest, and to limit the power of the judiciary and to limit the power of the king, which was the executive. And what do we have now? we have the total inverse of that. In fact, you would say that the Supreme Court now has a power that never before was it designed to have. All was blown up with Helvering v. Davis, 1938.
You got it right out of this book.
I actually didn't. I got it.
I know.
out-
I know.
Another article as I was reading for Helvering v. Davis in 1938 was the beginning of the end. FDR won with a major electoral landslide of 500 plus. Nobody's repeated that. I think his competitor had less than 10 electoral votes. So people were suing his New Deal laws because they were unconstitutional. But this one, which was with Social Security, he got through because they expanded the meaning of Article 1, Section 8 or 9, one of the two, and that was government levying taxes for wartime and for debts and for the general welfare. And that general welfare clause was extrapolated and copied from the Articles of Confederation. And it was never meant to mean what it means today, which was now we're going to give people Social Security and now we're going to have all these other entitlements, but they expanded that. And in fact, we have commentaries by Jefferson and Adams of what that general welfare meant, and it didn't mean what it meant in 1938. And all these things have been expanded, and the Commerce Clause has been expanded, so now we have all these agencies. We are now back, let me just finish the point. We're now
Okay.
back to 1776.
And if you look at the
We really are. We really